Good morning, Bishop. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
taking
Mike.
the time to be with us this morning. We have a long list of questions, so we'll just jump right in.
Sure.
What was it like growing up near Philadelphia in an Irish Catholic family?
Growing up in Philadelphia was a wonderful experience in that it was what we refer to as a neighborhood. And everyone knew each other. And the homes were very closely connected. They were called row homes. So you could actually just go over the railing and you'd be at your next door neighbor. And it was a very strong Catholic community. Everyone walked to church, everyone walked to school, and very close-knit. So I really feel very, very blessed with the upbringing I received. We went to Mass actually back then with our class, with our school. And every Sunday we went to my grandparents' house for a 2 o'clock dinner.
Wow.
Every single Sunday. My parents, my brother, and me, and that was always just a wonderful tradition.
Let's talk a little bit about sports. I know you're a big sports fan, but did you play any sports growing up? And then what teams do you root for today?
Yeah, my favorite sport growing up was baseball. I didn't have the strongest arm, so I was a second baseman. I also casually, not officially, played tennis, which is a sport that I continue to play throughout the seminary. And interestingly, my connection to baseball led me to be an umpire for many years. In fact, up until the year before I was ordained a deacon, I was an umpire for American Legion and all those areas. So I always enjoyed that. And so my loyalty, because I grew up for 45 years of my life rooting for Philadelphia teams, I still am a big Eagles fan.
Okay.
My dad and I had season tickets, but I will get on the Nationals bandwagon.
You mentioned your father. You had season tickets. So how did that tradition get started? And we hear that you record the games and watch them later after a busy Sunday.
Yeah, my dad actually, one of his friends was selling season tickets to the Eagles game. He purchased them with the idea of using them for our family. My brother, who is the great athlete, actually did not really appreciate the opportunity to go to games. He enjoyed much more being at home, watching it, and not fighting the traffic and the crowd and all. So I benefited from that. So for all those years, it was mostly my dad and I would go to the games. And as I said earlier, it wasn't so much about the games. It was about that time of being with my dad. And it was a special, that was our time together.
What was one of your first jobs as a young man?
Yeah, one of my first jobs, I worked at Sears in the department store. I worked in the garden, outside garden department, and then eventually the shoe department.
Wow.
So that's my connection to still staying with souls, I guess. But I worked in Sears for a while. Then, as I said, I was an umpire. Also worked at a catering, weekend catering, wedding receptions, things like that. Yeah.
Wow. And how did your faith life growing up prepare you to become a priest and then eventually a bishop?
I was very blessed. I was always surrounded by a strong Catholic family, blessed with the Catholic education with priests and sisters, great influences in my life. Through kindergarten to college, I had the Sister Servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary as my educators. And that's their major charism, is Catholic education. And so they're teachers. I mean, they're just gifted teachers, passionate about that ministry. And the beautiful example of the sisters has just been a great gift in my life, and I hold them very dear. I was very, very happy to see so many sisters of the Service of the Immaculate Heart of Mary present here in Arlington too. We never really had priests or religious in our family, so it was kind of the first in the family to pursue a call to vocation and priesthood. But when I announced the decision, I received nothing but love and support there.
Your coat of arms includes a reference to St. Charles Borromeo.
Right.
And then did your devotion to the saint begin before your time at the seminary?
No, it began at the seminary. I did not know much about St. Charles Borromeo until then, and learned about what a great reformer and great preacher and lover of God. And so I've spent it feels like I spent half my life at St. Charles Borromeo Seminary as a student and administrator, so thus my devotion. I left the seminary always with just beautiful memories. I loved every year I spent in the seminary, so I have a great affection for the institution. When I went back to the seminary, so many things were in place. I mean, some of the same professors, some of the same staff were there, so there was some continuity. You know, there was a change in the candidates, I thought, you know. I think, you know, I first tried to, as a rector, give them my experience, and I said, because it was so good, but I realized, you know, this is a different generation, and they're coming with different backgrounds and different realities, and so we had to adjust accordingly.
Several seminarians who you either taught or perhaps mentored at St. Charles now serve in the Arlington Diocese, and we've spoken to a couple of them in advance, but are you looking forward to working with them again here?
I really am. I've always, the Diocese of Arlington always had a very sound reputation, sterling reputation as far as the quality of candidates. And so they were great seminarians. I'm sure they're great priests. And, you know, and I said at my press conference, but this is a new beginning for all of us. I'm not the same person I was back then. They're not the same person. Sure. So we allowed this to be a new beginning.
Let's talk a little bit about the Latino community. Obviously, it was a big part of your ministry in Raleigh, and we have a large Latino community here in Arlington as well. When did you first start working with the community in Raleigh? It
wasn't. I really had no experience in working with Hispanic ministry until I went to Raleigh, and I was overwhelmed by the large population. I mean, we would say half the population in Raleigh is, Hispanic ministry. And so it was very, very new to me, and I did not know the language, I did not know the culture. And so thank God the beautiful people, faithful people, especially in our Hispanic community, were extremely patient with me. And so I did my best to be present with them as I did with our various communities throughout the diocese. With the Hispanic community, obviously the pastoral and spiritual needs are enormous, and so I think we did a real good job in welcoming priests into the diocese, even from outside the diocese, who came to serve as missionaries in our diocese to provide the spiritual care that our Hispanic community so much deserve. We were able to do that. And also we started a couple initiatives that would support missions and churches and centers to accommodate the growing Hispanic population. Major priority, no matter what ministry or what community we're speaking about, is to listen and to learn. And so I'm sure that the needs pastorally and spiritually of the Hispanic community here in Arlington may be different than what I experienced in Raleigh.
You've been involved with many committees and boards, both seminary and USCCB appointments. Do you have a favorite, or is there one that speaks to you at a personal level? Yeah,
I was very honored to be on the board for many years of my alma mater, St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, so that was always a great joy. I've been on the Clergy, Consecrated Life and Vocations as a member now. I'll be finished my term as chair, and that work has always been dear to my heart, working with priests and working with seminarians. So I've always enjoyed that. And I just began working a member of the Communications Committee, and as you know, I like your world a lot. Right. I recognize the great importance of communications and evangelization, the use of all the tools possible to get out the good news, and so I'm really benefiting from being on this committee. I also served for a number of years on the Migration Committee, which was great because it's a very large committee. It's one of the largest committees in the Conference of Bishops, and I learned a great deal about services to migrants and to all those coming into our diocese from various parts of the country. So that was a great work. And then again, vocations was a separate committee for a while, but now it's combined into Clergy, Consecrated Life and Vocations, and that's just where my heart is. I love that work.
Great. Let's talk about Raleigh, the Diocese of Raleigh. You were there for a decade.
Yes.
In addition to the new cathedral, which is being built, and it's an obvious priority for the diocese, what is one of the initiatives in your pastoral plan that you were most excited about?
Yeah, and again, the cathedral is it's been a project going on for 5 years, and we never built a cathedral in the Diocese of Raleigh. Our current one only seats 300 people. Wow. So there was a great need for a mother church, and it's near completion, and I think it's going to be a source of great inspiration to the entire community and a sign of unity for our diocese. Very recently, I initiated a new secretariat in light of our Holy Father's great priority, called the Secretary for laity, marriage, and family life, which is a recognition of what our Holy Father is asking us to do much more effective work in supporting the vocation of faithful married love, especially the ongoing formation of married couples. And so I think that's important, and to help families. More than ever, we need holy families, and I think the church can even become more present in the lives of families in our outreach. So very proud of that initiative, and are also open an office for human life and dignity, highlighting the unique responsibility we have for the protection of all human life.
Just as a follow-up to the cathedral aspect, why was it originally built for only 300? Was it when the diocese was established?
Yeah, when they picked the parish church, and they wanted it near the capital. So this current cathedral, Sacred Heart Cathedral, is right near the state capitol. But the win-win situation is that church is going to stay there, and it will have like weekday masses and small weddings and funerals, and so we'll still have that visible presence next to the state capitol. And then the new cathedral is only less than 2 miles away.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
With the similarities and between the two dioceses, Raleigh and Arlington, tremendous growth obviously being a common denominator. What challenges and opportunities does this present?
Yeah, the incredible growth and vibrancy of both the Diocese of Raleigh and certainly here in Arlington is a tremendous blessing. But as we know, with growth comes needs, pastoral needs and spiritual needs. And so the biggest challenge, but it's not a bad challenge to have, is we don't have unlimited resources, both with finances and and also with personnel. And so how do you best use those resources as good stewards to meet the increasing needs? That's where you have to get great counsel from many collaborative parties.
In Arlington, the growth sometimes can be attributed to the federal government or some of the high-tech industry. What is it that's attracting folks to, or Catholics specifically, to the Raleigh area?
Yeah, it's certainly I think as Virginia is, North Carolina is a beautiful state, and beautiful climate. It's known as the Research Triangle, especially that area of Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, and so that industry is increasing and is bringing a great expertise to the area, and so I think that's part of the reason. As you know, North Carolina is also known for its great universities and colleges, and so that's always a factor. Retirees are loving coming to North Carolina, both from the Northeast, but also interestingly from Florida. Sometimes people who retired in Florida miss the seasons, and North Carolina has all those seasons. And then the tourist industry is another attraction, and then migrant working, because of all the crops that are grown in North Carolina. So I would say they're probably the key factors.
What was the relationship between the diocese and, say, the universities, the campus ministry programs at, say, UNC Chapel Hill or North Carolina State or any of the other?
We had campus ministry, and Catholic campus ministry in all those universities that you mentioned. And we found that the universities were extremely cooperative in advancing our work, and they saw it as a plus for the university, and certainly it helped their recruiting. That they could say to visiting parents, and is there from Catholic students, is there a priest on campus? And so the university was willing to help us so that they could assure parents of our own students that they would be attended to.
Great. Let's talk about Arlington a little bit. At the press conference, you mentioned your respect and admiration for Bishop Valverde. When did this friendship begin, and how would you describe it today? Yeah,
we began actually when I was rector of the seminary, beginning in 1999, when he was, of course, sending seminarians to Arlington. He was very attentive to his seminarians, very hands-on. He wanted to know everything, and so as a rector, he had no problem contacting, and he wanted to hear the truth as it was, and he always told me that, and I had great respect for him from the beginning. I think our friendship really grew in 2002 when I became a bishop, and he recognized that this new bishop is walking into a world that can be a bit intimidating. I'll never forget in my first bishops meeting in 2002, in November, you walk into the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops room filled with hundreds and hundreds of bishops, and I'm sure he recognized me as being lost. And he was the first bishop actually to come over to me and say, hey, let me just show you the ropes here.
Wow.
And let's go out to lunch, you know.
Wow.
And then a friendship was born, and it has continued throughout the years. I consider Bishop Laverty a dear friend, a treasured friend, a brother. I've invited him to the Diocese of Raleigh. He came down to preach our Red Mass recently.
Oh, wow.
And it's not uncommon for us throughout the years to be on the phone frequently, just checking in with each other. So I can't tell you how honored I am to build upon his great work here.
Right. Again, we talked a little bit about goals or visions, and you mentioned you're going to maybe take some time to listen and
Right.
and get to know more about the diocese. But is there anything as you a month away get closer and closer to the installation date? Is there anything that you're thinking in terms of a priority or vision for the diocese?
Yeah, I think one priority, of course, has to be that I have to begin quickly in getting to know the priests and to spend time with them. They are my closest collaborators in ministry, and I trust them with the care of parishes and souls. And so I think that that's a high priority for me, is get to know my priests, my brother priests. And of course, I'll be working collaboratively with deacons and religious and lay faithful and seminarians, but there's a special bond that a bishop and priest must have, and so that definitely will be a priority for me.
And what is there anything specifically, or maybe there's multiple things, but what will you miss about Raleigh?
Yeah, in 10 years, actually, it's become my home. And so there is the human emotion of, leaving behind something that you've come to love. And so that's certainly my experience now, even though I'm extremely excited about this new opportunity. I will miss there's a real warmth in the community. Many people are there whose families are elsewhere. And so the church and the parish has become really family. I've never seen such a sense of community. And North Carolina is very gentle. It's people are very welcoming, very, very gracious. I'm sure they are here. But there is that southern hospitality that I thought was a cliche that I've come to learn that is not. And that southern graciousness and just beautiful community I'll miss greatly.
Did you get the chance to spend much time on the Outer Banks on that area? It's a beautiful.
Yeah, we have
state.
beautiful beaches in North Carolina. So I would make numerous trips to the Outer Banks and also to Wilmington area, where there are very, very nice beaches. I returned this summer to the South Jersey with my family, and I'm going back to North Carolina next summer for vacation because the water temperature is much nicer in North Carolina.
Right.